I did not expect the video to start like this. I came out with a very different idea of how I'm going to start, but you know those runs you come out on and just everything clicks, you feel like you're in flow state, you feel like you could run forever. And that's the run I'm on. The problem that this is a 5k maximum run as a comeback from injury. So as much as I feel like I could even run a half marathon or more today easily and want to, I have to keep my ego in check, which funnily enough is the subject of this week's video. Doesn't make it any easier though. Also, it's warmer than I thought, and these, I should not have come out with these because they're making my ears feel like they're going to melt to the side of my face. Onwards.
For the purposes of this video, I'm talking about ego in its dictionary definition sense, as in a person's sense of self-importance and how it can subconsciously derail all of our good training intentions if we let it. But there are also ways to overcome the ego, so stick around to be part of the conversation. Most important question of the day, Mary.
What's that?
Did you bring poo bags? That's not your nickname for me.
You're right here.
This is an exciting day, actually, because we are heading for the first time in probably, it feels like forever, 12 weeks, we're heading further than Sainsbury's. We're actually going to my mum's house because we can see my mum and stepdad now, and I've seen her once in 12 weeks, and Winnie very much misses them, so you'll see the reaction when we get there. But it's just nice to be going a little bit further afield and actually seeing people. But before we get to Mum's house, let me just tell you right now, because this is what the video's about essentially, how ego has ruined my training or my racing on numerous occasions, and I'll tell you why I'm telling you that in a minute. But I have, for at least the first season of training, trained too hard in every single session thanks to my ego. I've pushed through injury during training thanks to my ego, even up till recently, and I have also pushed through injury in races thanks to my ego. Do you remember that race in Hyde Park when I did it with a really bad back injury? I did an Olympic distance triathlon with a really traumatic back injury, and it put me out for months, didn't it? Like I could barely walk.
Yeah, and to be fair, Miami.
And Miami, yeah, absolutely. Miami, I was injured all the way up and I really shouldn't have raced it, but my ego told me I should. I've also pushed too hard in more sessions than I care to remember. And I want to share with you in this video over the years how I've really tried hard to subdue my ego to a place that lets me train in the correct way and keeps me as injury free as possible and racing at my maximum potential. And that's the aim for this video, I guess. That is the best butchers in the entire world ever, does the best sausages. This is my hometown. We're driving through the town where I grew up right now, called Southborough. It's seen better days, hasn't it? And that used to be my local pub. That's not a pub anymore. And here, I used to work there. That's closed down. Oh dear. And up that road is my dad lives up there. So we're in the town that I was born. And this is my school that I went to between the ages... Oh, that's just a hedge. Here, between the ages of 11 and 18, I went to Boys Grammar. This is an important road here. This one here, I fell in a hole when I was drunk. It really hurt my leg. We're nearly there. We're nearly there, Winifred. We're nearly there for walkies. Yeah. This is my mum. What's it like to see your son?
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure. We are, look, socially distancing. I'm making a video this week about how ego is bad for you when you train. So Chris, for example, was a swimmer growing up, and he would often get up lots of mornings and all of his training would be against the clock. And so that was ingrained in him from day dot, that everything you had to do was kind of based on external factors, not the enjoyment of doing it, but the beating the clock in the mornings. And he took that into his cycling. So what happens now is if he goes out, the first year when he used to go out cycling, he actually got to the point where he was too anxious to cycle because he thought he'd have to beat the time from his last cycle. And that is not his fault. That is a product of him growing up against the clock. It's conditioning and environment. What is this? A place where all of the dogs that who walk here have passed away?
It started off with Toffee's seat.
And look, that's Bill. That's our Bill. Stay there. Right, see you in a sec. So the weather is no good outside. We're not able to sit outside, so we've had to come into this room so that we can properly socially distance. So people are going to sit over there and we're going to sit over here, way over 6 meters apart, and keep the door behind us here open. But it was interesting because the way that mine and Chris's egos function are similar but different, and what I mean by that is when I spoke to him after we'd just been talking about how he approached the whole training thing and how I thought that from his swimming days he'd had like this negative ego effect, as in everything had to be done to the clock. Still, when we then discussed it, Chris wasn't. Still, when we discussed it, we had a differing of opinions in a good way. It's just a conversation because they're just opinions. But what we did agree on is that because we know our own egos, and Chris knows that sometimes when he goes out training, he's going to push too hard. He's got like structures in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. So whereas I can go out cycling and not push myself and know that I can stay in zone 2 out on the road. Sorry, this is getting interesting, isn't it? Chris can't do that. He knows that if he's out on the road, he's more than likely going to push 80% of his max or more, and certainly if a cyclist goes past him, he's going to push hard. So what he does is he stays indoors on his turbo trainer and does a structured workout that achieves the same goals. So all we're really doing is knowing our own egos, and I guess that's what we're trying to get at is you have to know what pushes your buttons and where you push hard and how to control that so that you're training smarter and not harder. This is getting ridiculous when he's licking my hands too much.
Ben.
You can wave to us because we were saying we were properly socially distancing.
Oh, okay.
And as I sat with my family and I talked all things ego, training and life, I realised that none of us intentionally train or race in ways that negatively impact us. Not me, not Chris, not anyone. We're a product of our experiences in life. None of it's our fault, and there is no right or wrong opinion on the matter. It's just opinion.
For me, it's about crafting your internal environment, and what I mean by that is the environment in your head to suit your own ego. And that's not easy. I mean, blimey, I don't know if I have the necessary skills to help anyone be able to do that other than talk through what I do for myself and see if anything hits home, anything works. If I'm being totally honest, I'm actually struggling to articulate my point here, and I appreciate I'm probably rambling a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just going to take a breather. I'm going swimming tomorrow morning, open water at Chipstead, and that is going to be nice and refreshing. It's 8 AM swim, it's the only slot they had. So I'm going to try and compose my thoughts tonight and come back at this tomorrow and see if I can come up with some kind of conclusion about how we best create an internal environment to suppress our ego and get the best training for ourselves. I mean, that sounded quite articulate. I'm quite happy with that bit, but I don't know about the rest. So tomorrow morning, I'll see you then. Whose idea was this? It was a good idea at the time to go swimming at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, but it's not so good now. But getting coffee in you, that always helps. Remember, coffee is life. Come on, do your stuff. starts from here, hey? I'll just come and sit on the dock here and talk through what I've thought through last night about rewiring our internal landscape in our heads. I don't want to change my entire personality, but what I want to do is continually work on my ego, because someone very much wiser than me once said that it's very much like working on your ego and on self-development is like sweeping a floor. You do it and it's clean, but the floor never stays clean. You've got to continually sweep the floor, and it's the same with working on yourself and self-development. Actually, I'll do the rest in a minute. I need to get in, otherwise I'm never going to get in. Whoa, my hair is next level. Okay, let's go swimming. Alright, that was actually pretty tremendous. So if it helps in any way, here are the ways that I'm going to try and keep my ego in check, try and create an internal landscape that helps me train in the smartest possible way. The first one is that I'm going to give myself a pain scale, which sounds crazy because so many of us train through pain so often that it almost becomes second nature, and I'm not sure that that's the best thing for us, and again, that's ego pushing us that direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a pain scale 1 to 10. Anything under a 4, I'm going to continue to train and just accept that probably there's a bit of discomfort, but it's wear and tear, it's impact forces from running. If I get to 4 or over, bail on the training, a hard bail. That's going to be my plan, because I've trained too many times past a 4 and it's led to something much more painful. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to train on heart rate, because it keeps you in the right zones and it takes your ego completely out of the game. It doesn't make you push too hard, it keeps you training smart again. So heart rate training, that's a big one for me. And the thing is, when you rely on pace, actually, you know, a 5-minute kilometre pace is a very different pace if you're on the flat to going uphill. It completely changes effort-wise when you're going uphill or not. So I'm keeping to heart rate. That will be the smart training for me. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly for me, is I'm going to attach all of my importance, all of my priorities to the process of training alone. I'm not going to worry about an end product, a race, anything like that. I'm going to fall in love, or continue to fall in love with the process, the doing. That's enough for me. It's process over end goal is the key. So attach yourself to the process, not the end goal, and you are set for life. It is a relationship for life. You're not going to believe this, but just before I went swimming, while I was putting my wetsuit on, I cricked my neck or pulled a muscle there. Classic. Like, this is just me. The point I'm trying to make, I guess, is that we all have our own internal egos and they're all very different, and it's all about working out how to best craft the internal environment in here to make sure that we make our ego work for us, rather than our ego take over and cause injury or overtraining or fatigue or being in it for the wrong reasons and dropping out of it. And the reason I'm sharing all of this with you is actually really to do with a quote I heard from Otto von Bismarck, which was, "Fools learn from experience. I prefer to learn from the experience of others." And I really liked that, and I'm not saying that we're fools, so maybe I'd take the edge off that quote by saying anyone can learn from experience, but the trick is to learn from the experience of others. So I feel by sharing my thoughts on how to suppress our egos and how to train smart, that it might help you out there, and I'm hoping that some of you will share your ideas on how you do it and how you train so that I can learn from you. So now, believe it or not, I'm going to have to go and take some painkillers. I despair at myself sometimes. I'll be fine. Classic. All right, see you Tuesday.